this is a little bit updated version of video which I posted yesterday. Battle of Cuito, Cuanavale, and you're gonna see there is a video right below. I gave the complete description of the Battle of Cuito, Cuanavale, like the one that nobody ever gave, like the one that never would be issued. It would never come out. Nobody would ever know about anything about this stuff. And in part number 2, which I provided, it's a video right below, I also talk about some other issue, and this is what I'm adding to the video that you see here, 2 of 2 Battle of Cuito, Cuanavale. This is just a little map. Let me demonstrate you where we lived, where we used to live. It's very important because this goes to show about some other issue I'm gonna title, but it's really interesting how I realize this stuff through the memory. This is where our old house is located here, right here. What does they call now this? Gray, green, and fun apartments, really? I don't know anything about this stuff here. It looks like some kind of a real estate agency, but this used to be a grammar school right here. Gurm, Osnovna Škola Gurm. And right next to we had a house here. That's a bank. NLB, it's called NLB. And this is where our house used to be. It was different. There was also a garage. It was different. But this is this old house, the city house, which my father have sold and moved then to the new location I'm about to show you. But let me share you something else. You're gonna hear me talking about various locations here in this video. One is gonna be about Janez Bulc. Another one is gonna be about it's actually located right in kind of almost in front of our house here. Here is where we moved. Father moved to this location here. That's our house right here. That's the house he made. It's actually quite big and luxurious house. I would rate that already as a luxurious house. And right in front of the house, you have practically in front of the house, as you know, you have a Krka pharmaceutical right there. On the other side of the Krka River, there is a Krka River that's dividing this. And then it would look something like this. That's a Krka pharmaceutical. It's called Krka pharmaceutical. We'll zoom this. This is the company. It's not that the company was involved, but company was literally built through this case. Everything was built through this case. This company would nowhere exist if it wasn't for this case. It grew into a giant company. And in this video titled Battle for Cuito, Cuanavale, 2 of 2. And that up there, I don't mention any of that stuff. That's part number 1. But in this part here, and it's what I'm adding this also to. Just because that concerns Cuito, Cuanavale, I am not going to be touching that video. I'm going to leave that video, and this video I'm going to title about where MK Ultra went on. Okay, they say that this was a founder of the company, and his name is Boris Andrijanic. This was not any kind of founder of the company. Founder of the company was everybody in Yugoslavia. My father was one of the first workers employed in this company. This was a pharmacist. He had his private pharmacy, and he had stolen a lot of stuff that was meant for the Kirka Pharmaceutical, and he managed to smuggle, using me, a lot of stuff from abroad and was selling through his private pharmacy. Then he got filthy wealthy, his family actually, through India, through, I'm not going to even say invests, but more thefts, more crime, more genocide against me, even after Slovenia became independent state. This rather is a thug, this rather is a criminal, to get to the bottom of the line. This was a very, very pro-Serbian, very, very pro-Yugoslav individual. If it was for this individual, Slovenia never ever would gain any kind of independence. And everybody should understand and know this. But this isn't about this issue. I already did discuss issues about these parasites. It's called family Andrijanic. And I will not see these people in a different light than parasites. These were the worst, single worst family involved in my case from entire Novo Mesto city. The worst. I am talking, this is a video where I talk about how this MK Ultra went on. But the British Royals, all through they would do MK Ultra, they would participate to this MK Ultra meetings in our old house here, next to the school in Novo Mesto. They did started to demand bigger housing, better, higher quality housing, etc., etc. And we're doing also this stuff to, I don't know, the British Royals gestured me that so that father could get himself a better, you know, housing, etc., etc., etc. They didn't have anything to do with the housing. That's one thing. There's not a cent or anything other than theft, destruction. This scum from London did not contribute. So they did brag about this because they realized they watched my father purchasing a parcel, and he did this before I even existed. So getting myself into talking about British Royals having anything to do with this is stupid, because they had nothing other than evil. They did not contribute nothing other than destruction, evil, pure evil. You're gonna hear me talk about this location here. This is the, alright, so I'm gonna go here into, this is the main street of the city, the Novo Mesto here. No, it's actually, it's not the main street. Got it all wrong. I'm gonna put this map like this. This you would go to the old city center. Now the old city center is this here. Our house was located just across the bridge, something like here somewhere, like that, like this. Okay, so yeah, you can see one right there. Exactly, you can even see the address here. So now you would get to the old city center. Get like this. This is the old city center, and you would get, here it says a library of Miran Yards, and this is what it looks like in front of the library. In front of the library, as you turn in this side street here, there was this police station. This is an old police station and prison where they would torture me. Next to the court, they would also have, literally as a child as I was, child, underage, before I even entered the grammar school, child, they had me inside of the prison. They had me tortured at this police station. You would enter this side street, and you would continue through this side street here. But this is true about Yugoslavia. People fantasize, oh, Yugoslavia. Let me just finish this stuff here, all right? Because this is about this issue foremost. There is so much I could explain about this stuff here. This is the house from Andrijanic family. This house here in the background. They did some major changes here to the property, but this is the house of what many refer to as the founder of the Kirka Pharmaceutical. Okay, and this is quite a big structure, considerable size structure, and this is where most frequently the meetings would be held. Well, often, very often, the meetings would be held inside of this house. This was also the only old structure, the only old house next to our house where Illuminati meetings would be held. Not really so many. Many, yes, but how can I say? Very relative, because we made move to the Krka village, and another issue, as I explained in continuation, British oils preferred with Americans new houses, and this company here, Krka Pharmaceutical, this was the house from Boris Andrijanich that you see here, and then is what his son inherited, this Misho Andrijanich. I don't want to see that creature. I don't even want to see him. I don't want to see this. This, ladies and gentlemen, is extremely... This is a horror. This. Because this man here acted in my face during his visits to our home. This is an extremely heinous individual. Extremely backstabbing, treacherous individual. He acted like my grandfather. He posed in front of me like my grandpa. He would buy me gifts and stuff, and he was like he was my grandpa. You know, I realized during the fishing trips, though, that he was very sick in his head, because I would give anything in this world to accommodate this guy. I had nobody. My grandpa passed away, was killed, when I was just... I think I was like 4 years of age. My father gave him into the home for elderly to the other side of Slovenia, into the Maribor, which is a disgusting thing to do. I don't know, man. If you ask me, personally, if you ask me, I'd fucking kick my wife out of the house to when it comes to my father. If she would not be okay with my father and stuff like this. And I suggest everybody to do this. Don't ever put your parents to the motherfucker land for somebody that move inside of your house. Don't ever do stuff like this. Don't do that stuff to yourself. You know, horror. Simply horror. My father's sister, Marlenka, used to live in Maribor, but I did describe the situation in Maribor when they would take me for a visit to the grandfather. He was beaten up and all kinds of stuff went on. It was pretty fucking sad stuff that went on. On the other hand, grandfather was a troublemaker because of whom also this case started. Grandfather was the highly decorated World War II veteran who had all the friends on the highest positions in Yugoslavia. I told you that he was even ambassador for United Nations with another individual here in Slovenia. And Belgrade, Josip Broz Tito and such, this was to him a small village. And because of this stuff is how this stuff started, this MK Ultra case. This is how it all started. The problem was that this man was his closest friend. This was one of his closest friends right there. Also World War II veteran. Also supplied troops with together with my grandfather. Literally, he was a secretary of the city, and this one here, he was a pharmacist. And they supplied troops with the medications, partisans. And this one, at one point in time, he even escaped to the partisans. He had to, or they would just eliminate you. They would just eliminate him. During the World War II, life was always on a you just, from one day to another, you could just disappear with the entire family. I told you about my grandpa and my father and sister, how they had them at the train station in Novo Mesto, ready for deportation to the Dachau Germans. Auschwitz or Dachau, basically extermination camp. 2 children with the grandpa and also with the aunt and so on. So this, at any time, you could just disappear. It is just as simple as that. That was the World War II. If you made it somehow, escape or whatever, if they let you know before they came to pick you up somehow, this was business from one day to another. For one day to another, you did not know what's going to be like. And so the problem is that these veterans, they were frequently drunk and they did not know the limits about abuse. I was a child, I was a baby, and I was a child, and these veterans from my grandfather, honestly, these were animals. They got drunk and so on and so forth, and you know, it was a trouble that gave the upper hand to the Serbs, who were using this Josip Broz Tito to take most severe advantage of. So the real circumstance about my grandfather, how one was removed from house, why, and so on and so forth, I can only be guessing. But it was all kinds of stuff that went on. It's also important for me to note this. It's also important for me to note this. They would drink. My grandfather liked to drink. He loved a good drink with his friends. These are older people, veterans, and at the end of the World War II, they had too much time at hand. Simple, I'm saying, just the way it was, this stuff. Very reputable man, extremely reputable man, but, you know, he had friends like judges, you know, the highest people, you know, judges. When I say judges, you know, Novo Mesto court was a location where I was most severely tortured as a child. You know, these things are stuff that I'm talking about. This isn't going in a benefit of any of the people that was coming inside of our house to visit my grandfather. They were taking advantage of it. The KGB, UDBA, OZNA became owners of this house here in the city of the Novo Mesto, older house. You know, my aunt got married to the Montenegrin individual from the Montenegro, and this was a military individual. See Montenegro here. Highest ranking also, I don't know, general. Pejovic. His name is Pejovic, and passed away too. I want to make this story very shortened up so that you can see how I recall this portion of MK Ultra, because I always thought about this housing, how come that it was, and I explained this in continuation. Other locations that involved the housing during MK Ultra sessions involved locations such as directors of the Krka Pharmaceutical. The guy whom I have pointed you out, this was a general director of Krka Pharmaceutical, general. So this was basically director of all directors, not only workers. But the Krka Pharmaceutical, they have different kind of directors. They have directors for the sales, they have directors for whatever. They have different positions for directors. And those directors, which one also was Janez Bulc, I explained that stuff in continuation. They had new housing, like our house here. You know, this square houses in Yugoslavia, this was the thing. You know, everybody was building themselves new houses. And because British Royals and Americans heavily preferred the new housing. They were just not impressed with the old housing. They didn't like that old shit. The diplomats, the presidents and stuff that were coming, they didn't like the old housing. They preferred new housing, newer housing. Even threats surfaced that if not going to replace the fucking old housing, we won't be coming no more and stuff like that. And so father would load me inside of the car, you know, at this location that I demonstrated you earlier, at this Tardinova 4 street. He would throw me inside of the car and as a baby, literally, and off we rushed with the car into, as a child, or there would be Serbs that would come, and not only Serbs, it was all kinds of people. Pokorni, let's say Pokorni from Krka Pharmaceutical, the two, they're not brothers, cousins, Misho and one more, it just doesn't, Drago Pokorni. They would come and they would be all nervous. Savo, are you ready? Are you ready? Savo was the name of my father, and they were all fucking excited. They would throw me inside of the car, and then with these cars they would fly through the city, or it would be KGB, it would be UDBA, it would be the Serbs from Belgrade that would come. You have a police officer that would come, just like you will have a police officer who would walk inside of you, bodyguards literally from Josip Broz Tito, that kind of stuff. Are you ready? Are you ready? Train station, and also the housing, where in this video I talk about the housing, about the or with the cars all the way to Belgrade or whatever fucking place in Slovenia, Ljubljana, or whatever location. This used to be Yugoslavia before. In this video, however, I talk about Illuminati meetings, where the Illuminati meetings were held when I was a child, practically when I was baby in the area, where I was child, and even when I became a teenager. They were held at the houses of directors of the Krka Pharmaceutical. They were held inside of the house of Levichnik. That's another company here. It's called Renault now. It used to be known as IMV. This is a Renault factory they have. They would be held at local business people, even Chertalic, wealthy people, basically. Whatever would be money, they call it Revos, this thing here. Okay, and the founder of this one, in a parenthesis, was Levichnik. Now, these are just the directors, basically, that in Yugoslavia was prohibited. This was a socialist state, you know. These are just the people that got the money to develop with professional help certain type of company necessary for the state, etc., 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 you know. So what the fuck is this? I don't even know. This shirt doesn't look like a Renault. This here more looks like Renault, you know. That's not even a fucking assembly line, man. That's like some kind of a junk, where they do the junk or something like that. It's not that it's not important, of course it is, and I myself worked on a location like you have seen, but this is what this is, okay? So, enough said about, there was a guy by the name Shawnee. There was a guy by the name, the only guy that also was a director, I think, he was Oblak Silva. He did not get to host me in his house many times, but he wanted so badly to host these people inside of the house so he could take a photo of them. And he did, I understand. He did host it on a few occasions. It was a big deal. So this is how they did. They were always looking for a new housing, new houses, bigger houses, and the rest I explained inside of the video about what this is. The most disgusting thing here, pertaining to Andrijanic is that this is actually completely insane when I consider this stuff. This is like super, super disgusting. He portrayed himself as a grandpa to me, and I record the meetings with, with this inside of their house. You see, this is a court right here, and that's a police station. Is basically, that's a library right here. The police station is right next door. This is a police station. This you gotta get out like this, out on a street. That's a police station and jail right there from police. This is all at one location, and this is the house from Andrijanic. The most disgusting shit is that Andrijanic alone threatened me with the stuff. He oftentimes engaged in torture at his home even. Not only have he hosted Josip Broz Tito, he hosted all kinds of people because of me inside of this home. And this would be, you would think that your grandpa, practically the man who replaced my grandpa, remember when I told you about the partisans and all this stuff, you would think that this was the first man that would provide you with the audio recording or with the photos, These people were extremely wealthy. For conditions in Yugoslavia, this is like one of the wealthiest people. And you would I got it all fucking wrong. These were parasites from beginning to the end. And against all odds, they were trying to get me killed together with the UDBA, with the OZNA. I would not even get into the area of employment or something like that. This is the most disgusting factory that was in my life that I have seen. This is the most disgusting site. I even came here and applied for work on 2 occasions. I supplied them with the resume I applied. The only thing they did is they laughed at me during MKH or humiliated and so on. This must be the most disgusting thing ever. And were hijacking me, trafficking me with literally with their trucks. From Krka Pharmaceutical, they would traffic me all the way to the Russia. Even that kind of stuff took place. And or they would board the planes with me, their directors, their executives, to transfer me to the Russia for torture purposes. This was a Krka Pharmaceutical. And or they would have a bus that would be coming here to pick up the people. They would organize the excursions, all kinds of stuff like this, and transport me to Serbia, to Russia, and so on. Wow. This shit here, this is like you would have for me, this is like you would have an Auschwitz concentration camp right there on the display in front of your house. This is what this shit is to me. That's what they are to me. Zero, anything. Slovenia, against all odds, became independent. Soviet Union have fallen. Like this guy and others wanted to kill me. Became independent. In the newly independent Slovenian state, the communist boss of the Yugoslav police in Slovenia, his name Milan Kučan. Yeah, this was a communist boss in Yugoslavia. This was a big boss in Yugoslavia who was in charge for the police in Slovenia. Police worked strictly under his authority. This was a police boss. This was a main boss from Josip Broz Tito, this guy. Everything went through this guy. This was the boss, the main guy of the police. This was elected as a new Slovenian president in the so-called Slovenia, once Slovenia became independent. I don't want to go and vomit, you know what I feel about the Slovenia and about independence and so on, They still have the Russian flag, Became elected as a president of Slovenia because Jan is Janša. That's this guy here, and Luis Peterle. And Dmitry Rupel and Bouchar. This is posing with the uniforms, Slovenian. This kind of stuff. He became the first Slovenian president in a so-called independent Slovenia, because these motherfuckers would not investigate Milan Kučan's crimes which he committed. And they knew not only about Milan Kučan, about the crimes he committed during Yugoslavia. This was not even about the communism. This was about the ethnic cleansing. This was about killing people with goal to create Serbia here. That's what this shit was about. Slovenia was nothing other than prison on open. And they would not go and investigate garbage like this so that he could become a president, even so he could appoint himself. So he could appoint himself as a first president of Slovenia in a newly founded so-called Slovenian independent state beginning 91. You know, you got to understand what exactly happened here in this case, because these are all the people that they supposedly were opposition of Milan Kučan. They knew not about crimes of Milan Kučan only, but they also knew everything. They knew everything about Milan Kučan, his youth, Junge of the Milan Kučan, his youth. They knew about Robert Golob, what Robert Golob was doing inside of the prisons in Yugoslavia, and they knew about Borut Pahor. They knew about who Borut Pahor was. They knew about Borut Pahor, who Borut Pahor was. And they knew about Gregor Golobic, what he was doing inside of the prisons in Yugoslavia. They knew about these people, and what they did is they make sure that these people would not be investigated. And this was a youth during Yugoslavia, and they were doing crimes, killing people inside of the prison system. And the best about Janša and Peterle and Bouchar and etc., they knew about all this stuff. And I know they knew about this stuff because not only they participated, watch this stuff goes on. They were involved, they were part of the UDBA people. But they demanded from me to reveal about these people, about the stuff they were doing during Yugoslavia. And how the fuck would I reveal anything like this? Who the fuck I was? I was nobody and nothing. I had no chance against the entire system. When I started to appear on the internet, they refused me flat my claims of 2010 about MK Ultra. Didn't want to have nothing to do with it and became desperate to get me killed. Not desperate, but totally decided to destroy me through the psychiatric system. These are the people who, upon Slovenian independence, have turned themselves to be thugs, criminals, thieves. They, in some cases, of a case of the Zoran Thaler, would not even commit crime physically, but would invite, I think it was a Guardian or whichever British paper, foreign journalists to express interest, knowing that they are audio recorded and stuff like that, into corruption and stuff like this, stealing money, crazy stuff. So they could arrest them, persecute them. This is how they posed as an example of Slovenian independence to Slovenes. There is nothing else to say. It was interesting and important to note that Slovenes continue to adhere to this politic. They continue to
to adhere to this. Even once they saw me, and entire Slovenia knew me, every village knew me. I was thrown into the psychiatric hospital after 38 years of torture, bestiality, MK Ultra lynching in 2012. Therefore, almost 22 years after Slovenia became independent. Today, you can see in Slovenia, no, it's not about who is today on the power. I would not go and lower myself like this, but we'll never forget the threats, the death threats that Aleš Hojs is supposed to be Janez Janša minister and so on and so forth, gave me together with Janša, with Peterle, gesturing me, hey, and if you're gonna, by the way, if you're gonna talk about us, then all the death threats pertaining to your father and the death threats pertaining to you, that they were instilling in you, they all gonna come true. And so their government lasted for 2 years, from 2020 to 2022, and since we have the so-called the leftists, but when you draw the line in between the lies, it summarizes to the stuff I told you about. The day I was thrown into the psychiatric hospital is when Janez Janša booked into the jail because of the corruption. So I could not even be seen. It couldn't even be seen that I disappeared, that I was thrown behind the walls of the psychiatric institution in 2012. This is Slovenia. This is a real Slovenia. Zares Slovenia. To je zares Slovenia. And the rest of the video, enjoy. It's something little about Cuito Cuanavale, about the London, about the British, the role they played, what this was all about, how it worked out. And I like the part where I explain basically how I recalled about the Cuito Cuanavale transaction, how the battle of the Cuito Cuanavale was sold way ahead of the battle to the Russians, how the Russians purchased the battle. That was actually totally 100% a Russian battle, which, however, they have used Cubans to get the job done. They financed Cubans literally beep, and I don't have anything else to say. Enjoy watching the video and make your own conclusion, come to your own decisions, views based on whatever you watch in the video. That's already enough. My father finally did build a house. We did move into the house. I don't know what year it was. 1982 or something like that. At the Krka right here. And how can I say, his wish came true, because father also claimed during MK Ultra that he wanted to have a house so that he could contribute to this, that he could have his own place where it would be excellent for this Illuminati meetings. This is also a form of investment, etc., etc. The thing is that what police was doing with me is completely unprecedented. This is already for another story, where this is going to be the next video I will create. It's going to be dedicated to the biggest, even bigger than Štefanič, even bigger than Janez Ogulin, which was climax next to the director before the Janez Ogulin, and Igor Juršič, criminals from Novo Mesto police station. This is the new location of the Novo Mesto police station, dedicated to even bigger criminal than all the directors from Novo Mesto police station. It will be a video I will dedicate to the funny man. The funny man is known as Štefanič, the funny man. Štefanič, the funny man. Andrej Štefanič. That's going to be the video I will dedicate, completely breaking down about how Štefanič came on the picture and what exactly Štefanič was in my case and who Štefanič is. Because the day when I came on a police station to file criminal complaint against Igor Juršič, director of the Novo mesto police station, my case was transferred to even bigger criminal than Igor Juršič was. And that name of that criminal literally was a Štefanič. Once father built the house at Krka village here, away from the city, etc., nice, fenced. There is still a gate here that should be, let me see if oh, there it is, look. There's still a gate hanging there. This is where the money was stolen from my first pay at Štefanič. It's what I got for like 60, 80 hours of metal working work. It happened, so I got even less than 100 euros of pay. It was exactly equivalent to the 100 American dollars. That was my pay for 60, 80 hours of metal working, bestial work. From the morning to dawn, money was stolen from the budget, from the Slovenian state budget, for what is known as financiranje prakse. And he would give me $100 per month handout for the work. Practical part, once I became mechanical engineering technician, I would go and I would work in a company. I'm going to demonstrate it. That's a Štefanič. It's known as blast technique. It's yeah, that's another story. Like I said, I will go and I will video record. It's also located on the other side of the Krka River, and it's located right here, like this. As a matter of fact, it's located actually right here, like this. Okay, so this will be from Štefanič. This is where he built his wealth with his thefts. Hey, these people are doing nothing. He changed the name from Jože Štefanič to Blast Technique because Jože, father, died, and the son Bojan inherited this, and then his sons inherited this, and so on. Criminal thugs, violent criminal thugs from Serbia. Their father is from here, who would do nasty stuff like this, theft, and more nasty stuff than that. Police, this is a nasty work, metal working. Think about using a hammer and smash all day fucking long, and the assignments that I would get would leave me filthy, dirty, crazy stuff. Inside of the closed space, people, the metal working people would become deaf because of the so much excessive noise, banging. Then you would use this flexerca, I don't know how you say that. You would use this kind of stuff and all kinds of tools. Wow, boom, boom, wow, boom, bam, boom, bam, boom, boom. With the goal to... My father planned on throwing me into the school for the special needs children when I was a child already. He wanted to get rid of me. That was all that physical violence that father committed himself to, together with the police. And MK Ultra was just an extension on that stuff. And when I got out of the school, I didn't get the job for the mechanical engineering technician or anything like this. Had any kind of ability to survive. I was jobless. I was thrown into the world of joblessness, and this is the stuff they were doing with me. And my father went on to steal the money so he could have, he said, you didn't contribute nothing to the house, you at least have to pay for the gate to the house. and the gate is thrown over there behind the fence. See, this is the way it ended this stuff. Police, in meanwhile, did not waste. And they were doing everything possible to get me killed as fast as possible. Their plan was to station me where my father finally ended, inside of the home for elderly people. This is a real horror story. This is a real horror story. This is a horror. This is such a horror story that you don't get to see this shit in any fucking Hitchcock movie. You don't see anything like this. This is like Thriller multiplied by 1,000. On steroids, Thriller. I told you about how they were bringing me as a child to the institution, which is located right next door to the home for elderly people. Right? You know about that kind of stuff. Father, this is just the way it was. If I would not leave Slovenia, I would be simply killed. That's a graveyard here. Then this is this institution where my father is located, also next to this home. This was, they had in plan to throw me inside here, to completely destroy me, break my head with electroshocks, with medications and so on. They had a plan on killing me, literally. Either here or to send me to a special school for the for people with the special needs, to another location, one even to the Krško, etc., all kinds of stuff like this. This was completely insane. This is what chaotic chaos. This is MK Ultra for the people that would like to know what MK Ultra is. This is MK Ultra. My teacher is Anton Bucher. He wanted to get rid of me. I told you about what went on inside of the school, what the fuck this was. And I told you about the director of Novo Mesto police station, how he came here when I was just for fishing, how he talked with the father, how they started to contemplate on proving case of the physical violence against me when I was maybe just 11 years old, 12 years old I was, and they were coming here fishing, and they started to discuss about what is the best way to get rid of the child when he grows up, through the home for elderly people, where you drive him insane, and he comes to visit you, and he's recorded and proven that he's violent, etc., etc. I told you about all this stuff. This was an old director before the Jana Zogulin, who was coming here with Jana Zogulin for fishing. Jana Zogulin was coming here to this location before this house was there, with another director, and even with the Milan Kuchan. Yeah? So the stuff I'm talking about is not twisted out of wine or anything like this. We had people here that were coming, not when I was drugged up, but we had people here that were coming. There were all kinds of people that people usually would only see on the TV. All kinds of politicians. All kinds of politicians were coming. And once I finished the school, this shit continued. This madness continued through the forced unemployment. A job like this, it was the funny man, Štefanič, who came on the picture. He wanted a job with the police. And finally, once I immigrated to United States of America, before I immigrated to United States of America in 1993, Štefanič became extremely involved directly in a physical violence, in a physical torture. Once I immigrated to United States of America in 1995, to which I would even refer to as rather escape, as I had to go to get the medical examination done, all the way to the Salzburg, I think it was, to Austria, to close to, or what was it, or Linz, I don't remember anymore. Let me see that. It might have been a Linz, I'm not sure. Hey, I'm not even sure, was it a Salzburg or Linz? I have to see those papers. Yeah, might have been. No. It was absolutely Salzburg, because Linz is way more inside. It was Salzburg. It was this one here. That's how I got through this work, overseas work, job. Apollo, Chandler's, Meridian, which boat they sank sometimes, I don't know, in 2000 they sank the boat. Like boat never even existed. That kind of stuff went on. Entire ship, that's a vessel with over 1,000 passengers on it. Insured one really good at Lloyd in Britain through the British exchange insurance, and then they sink one of the Singapore or something like that in that area. They wanted to get me killed at all the costs, with goal to put me inside of the home for elderly people. This is the funny part about that stuff. My father planned on getting rid of me, throwing me into the home for elderly people. This was quite hilarious. But once I immigrated to the United States of America and I was delivered to Novo mesto, where torture continued with the father on the picture, I started to demand. I got the proposition for, that's when the Štefanič stepped in. Remember when I talked to you about the Štefanič? And they were not even sure whether I would recognize Štefanič or not from previous violence. Talking about Janez Ogulin and the previous director and so on. And Štefanič got in 96, and in 98, 97 completely took case over after I expressed even demand to get my father inside of the home for elderly people, just as it was proposed. Just as I explained you, they started to threaten. They were demanding bloodshed between me and my father. And in once I immigrated to the United States in 96, I have the video about that stuff. Milan Kucan started to blame my father for immigration, for my immigration to the United States of America. Yeah, they were using any kind to create as much as division and problems as possible. They wanted the whole family to slit throat to one another. This was a game of Milan Kucan, Milosevic, all this, Josip Broz Tito. This is how they played. This is very, very brutal world. And in 97, 96, after I expressed the wish for the father to be thrown instead into, because of his violence, into home for elderly people, which was completely unprecedented, because father was so much engaged in violence, in MKUltra violence. It is unprecedented how this man was violent. And it was unprecedented when I started to demand, I'm not going to say when the chance opened, but when they started to instigate, the police started to instigate with the funny man, Andrej Štefanič, was the one for whom they suggested, now this is going to be your police officer, this is going to be the one who's going to be protecting you. 6 years after Slovenian independence, completely failed. They were not capable, Slovenes, to even stop what scum started when I was 3 months of age during Josip Broz Tito East Yugoslavia. They were hiding behind the Serbia, behind the Yugoslavia, finally became independent as Slovenia. Quite unfortunate actually for this scum, Slovenian scum. Slovenian scum continued with the genocide and started to the failure, deliberate sabotage to not resolve this case culminated in brainwash on how it's going to be Štefanič, the funny man, who's going to help me out resolve this case. That's the best part about it. So then you have a Štefanič come in and inquiring about getting my father thrown into the home for elderly people instead, that Milan Kučan, that I left home, they're not supposed to be like this, and its father became guilty, etc., etc., etc. No, like I said, they wanted us to kill one another. And it was the first time, and my father surprised, that I started to demand from Kučan, from the police, to throw my father inside of the home for elderly people. And it's also something that I started to demand from my mother to see herself in it. And my mother expressed disgust with me. She was disgusted. The second thing that started is they started to deliver father at home for elderly people, also where they used to torture me since my early childhood. And they delivered my father at home for elderly people, who had to be inside of the home for elderly people, where the recipe for which I told you about earlier, since age 11, was proposed by the old director Novo Mesto police to the father on how they get caught best when the parents get old. Abusing parents is basically the violent childhood, the violent life results. You know, domestic violence usually results in payback to their parents at older age, and that's where the police is most successful at catching people. So, planned on through the torture, using father. This is how they got father into this mental game. So that's how father landed inside of the home for elderly people, offering police the services. He started to play with this shit, and they started to systematically destroy him, break him apart. Yeah, this is the way they got him. He started to play with this stuff, and they started to cause him damage, more and more damage. His stay inside of the home for elderly people was longer and longer. He was used for the torture purposes for the police, and now you have a perfect circle. Mama blaming me for it, father doing the stuff that police wants him to continue to do. He already saw himself that if he doesn't succeed with what started in 2022, that he is definitely sentenced to death. Worse yet, they started to scare him with the court, with the police, with what it will be if it comes out the truth about MK Ultra, etc., etc., etc. This is the video that I have to complete about the funny man, about the Štefanič, the funny guy, the Štefanič who knew nothing about me. He claimed he knew nothing about me when he met me at Novo Mesto police station. This is Štefanič. This is a funny man. This is the guy who demanded the bloodshed between me and my father, while on the side working with my mother, like basically positioning of my mother as a police officer, in a role of the police officer, in a role of the psychiatrist inside of our house, who would become ultimate decider about father and about me. First destroying father, and then the secondary me. This is the video I yet have to complete. My father is so old that he understands all this shit, yet whatever you tell my father, he'll go along with it, because there is nothing. This man was completely destroyed. They didn't destroy, they make him blind, they destroy him, they completely tore him into pieces. If anything, I was the one who did not realize that man is already so deep in shit, mentally and everything. I did not realize, because the stuff that he was doing was completely insane. He wanted to get something out of me, something, anything, desperately. But I was not the one who was after him. You know, it was somebody else who was in the game, they were after him. My father never had anybody in this life, really, other than his father, and secondary that he had was myself. That's me. Other than that, this man, he did not really have anybody. He doesn't really know right from wrong. And he experienced some a lot of mental illness in his life. His house, new house that he culminated here, built here, culminated in even greater mental problems. The rusty gate is still there. Look at it. I couldn't afford myself to stay for $100 in Slovenia destroying, ripping myself apart. My father started to demand the money for the heating and stuff like this next to it. From those $100, he wanted the money for the food, for the heating. I fucking have the whole fucking thing, whatever I had. I had nothing really. Bought myself a ticket to America and I went to work on the ship. This is the way this was. The special video about the funny man, what the funny man did. This funny man destroyed my life, ripped my life completely apart. And that was beginning the 1992-1993. This piece of shit of the human being from Novo Mesto police station was not even a police officer when he was doing the stuff like this. He was right on the limit between becoming a police officer when he started to do incredibly, just as I described, incredibly criminal, the most disgusting stuff possible, and later started to negotiate as a police officer. This is the guy that was already in the police. They had him already in the police, they claimed, and they did not know, but now that they know, do you like him, and so on. This was 97, 98. He will be the one, he will help in you, etc., etc., etc. That was Andrej Štefanič. And Andrej Štefanič started to build the case against me, insisting that I was the first one who wanted to put the father inside of it, simultaneously presented to me as a help, as an assistance, because this is how they play people down. They always play double sword. He started to intimidate, harass. That's what he wanted. He believed he's going to harass me, intimidate me. That I was the one who wanted to put the father inside of the first into home for elderly people. And those are the issues that police have used with the prosecutors, with the Kuchan, with the politicians, for purposes of the psychiatric hospitalization in 2012. They continued to hunt, torture, kill, rob, destroy, steal, all the way to 2012 and beyond. But in 2012, literally threw me into the psychiatric hospital, citing me also that I was the one who wanted to put the father first at home for elderly people, which I never did in my lifetime. I was in America, never returned to Europe between 95 and August of 2006. That's for 11 and a half years. Never came to Europe on my own, always only was hijacked by the Central Intelligence Agency, CIA and FBI. So this is about the funny man, about the Štefanič. I am going to video record the gate, all that stuff the way I already did. And I'm going to put the whole video about the Štefanič, about the funny man, about what the fuck he did in this family, this guy who claimed he knew nothing about me, he doesn't know nothing about me. This is the Mac Daddy of the crime. This was the man who hunted me, my life, since 1992. Andrej Štefanič. We will return back here to this place, and it's going to be 1,000 times worse than it was during my last visit to the police station. The next time you're going to see me at that police station, the chances are it's not going to be even with the police. It will be with the military boots. Who the fuck knows? Maybe it's Italian government, maybe it's Austrian government, maybe it's American government that don't want this inside of Europe. Not inside of European Union, but inside of the Europe. Maybe somebody is watching this and they maybe are just sick from watching the bloody truth like this to go past. To have a police station with the murderers, killers, assassins in the center of the Europe. If I would get this kind of assistance, I would absolutely be grateful for one. I absolutely would be grateful for, yeah, you can go, you can write down that I plan coup d'état on you or whatever the fuck. You are welcome to do so. If I would get this kind of assistance from anybody, I gladly accept one. The one who wanted to create this bloodshed positioned my mother in the role of psychiatrist, police officer, enforcer. Obviously, who it is. I didn't want to have anything to do about talking about what my father was doing to me, how I left the United States of America, what police was doing with me. This was simply something my mother needed to get rid of the father. They do interpret him news at home for elderly people, whichever way it fits them. And my father takes as it is because of the stuff he was involved in, because of the stuff he did. He is just a repentless denier of his own crimes. He's not capable to face off with his own history, with his bloody deeds. That is true. He's up to no good, but he still is my father. And the thing about it is that police did absolutely everything possible, everything that was in their hands for the bloodshed to take place. The one who wanted the bloodshed, the one who was looking for a bloodshed, the one who was doing this crisis, that was looking forward to this, positioned my mom as in a role of the judge, in a way, in a certain way, and wanted to play the judge. This was the scum here from this bunker here they have in Novo Mesto. That's all there is to it. They needed this kind of stories. They wanted me to condemn father. They wanted to bring this stuff up because they wanted to get rid of my father. This is the main thing. Yeah, it was a systematic plan, systematic structure that Slovenian state created, getting rid of one by one. Now, my sister is not dead. I don't think so. But, you know, that's my word against the police. That's my word that can be proven even wrong. Definitely, these are the circumstances that deeply involved the United Nations, European Union. I don't understand with the Interpol, with all this, how you guys just do not react, that you just continue to be passive about it, watch this, and pray that this Slovenian drama would simply unfold itself. I don't fucking get you. I don't fucking get you, because my role model, you are not. I'm going to put it this way. My role model, you are not. So, I guess that this is a new politic that in the Europe, inside of the NATO, inside of European Union, there is space for absolutely anything. For plenty crime, for plenty corruption, getting people killed. I guess this is a politic. This is what this is all about. Maybe I really don't know what the situation is with this stuff. Situation is pretty fucking insane that I actually have to talk about this stuff. But, you know, just maybe there are people out there that don't want this in Central Europe. Maybe there is people out there that don't want this in this world. Maybe there's people out there that feel that these are oxygen thieves and that something needs to be done about it. With Russian flag in this part of the world, maybe there is people that simply don't want to go along this type of history. Maybe there is people out there that feel that it shouldn't be here, it shouldn't be this way, that it's wrong, and something needs to be done on a much, much higher than even police instance. Actually, I should say on a much higher than Slovenian state instance. Slovenian state is a completely failed nation. That's what this is. From here on, you will be hearing me talking about The only thing I'm going to do is basically I'm going to add the part number 2 about the Battle of Cuito, Cuanavale. Now, sure enough, this was not the idea. I didn't want to bring the shit against the father on the surface. I am trying to help him out, get him home. Yet these people continue to insist, they continue to persist, and you can see what the stuff they do is truly, truly disgusting. Next to giving me advice, many totally advised on how I should protect my father, help my father, etc., etc. These people did nothing other than give you a piece of advice. For me, you're more fucking useless than any parasites in this world. I mean, your advice is just equals to a total shit. The advices that you were giving me during MK Ultra is equals to complete lunacy. From the advice, I have absolutely nothing to do with it, because advice is completely useless if one does not understand about what the fuck goes on. And you murderous scum that you were giving me all kinds of advices, the only thing you have done is you have contributed to even greater confusion. If it was not for my strength, for my power, I never would come to realize about what the fuck goes on, because you guys made it so impossible to see, so fucking clusterfuck, invisible, the whole thing. You guys did. You guys, because of whom this crime went on. You guys who saw actually what was happening and have done absolutely nothing. No. Good did not exist for the evil in this case. Good was evil. From here on, you're just going to see me adding the part 2 of 2 Battle for Cuito Cuanavale, where you're going to see me systematically explaining you about how I actually managed to recall this childhood and even a teenage years, till my father completed the house, visits to Illuminati meetings that were also held in the city of the Novo mesto. That's an interesting one. Thanks to Battle Cuito Cuanavale is how I figure out about the meetings, which I always had in head, but it somehow did not match the newer housing that I was inside. It became clear to me about who was doing this, where was doing this, how they were doing, just as I described at the beginning of this video. So the continuation is basically copy-paste of 2 of 2 Battle of Cuito Cuanavale.
I am going to do the part number 2 of Battle of Cuito Cuanavale. Cuito Cuanavale. I wasn't going to do that, but tonight I had a mind opening thanks to Cuito Cuanavale. I did explain about how future battle of Cuito Cuanavale was solved, and here I am ready to give you a total details. Who sold one, maybe almost for how much. Russians were the one, they purchased it, and now let me give you a detailed explanation. This is just going to be part number 2. This is a newer kitchen. We used to have an old house in the city, and funny, when I considered this video about the Cuito, the sale, the deal for the Cuito Cuanavale was done in 1979, 1980 was the sale done. I remember this because British royals accused me of being a traitor. They had done something to me. I told you about the torture at Cuito Cuanavale, and they did this in such a way that 9 years of age I gave up on the Cuito Cuanavale. I didn't want to have nothing to do with it. And it was about the sale. And there's a kitchen like this one here. In a house that father, we moved in. Finally, like in, I don't know what year was it, 1980, 1982, something like this, 1984, 1982. Actually, sorry, yeah, 1982, something like that. But it was not this house. It was not this house. It was just a house like this. He told me, his name I think was Janez Bulc, one of the Krka pharmaceutical directors. This is something I had never mentioned yet this is what enormously a lot was done through what I would explain to you right now. His name is Janez Bulc, and he was a brother of Marko Bulc. Janez Bulc. You don't get to see one here anywhere, but this was in a category of Marko Bulc was basically in a category of Milan Kucan. These were all big, hardcore UDBA people. They were coming in our house. This is all KGB, top KGB people. And his brother was less KGB. He was the director of Krka Pharmaceutical. You cannot see him anymore. He died in a car accident in Croatia. And just about already for some time now, for quite some time, I don't know, 15 years ago or something like that, long time ago. The Krka Pharmaceutical had not only one director, but the Krka Pharmaceutical had more directors. Let's say Shawnee also passed away. This was also one of the directors. But the general director was always only one, you know. And so it was not a house like this. It was not this house, right? But the guy said, talking about the British royals, he said, if I'm not already barely waiting to have also a house like this. And we were pretty much in all these Slovenian houses, newer houses, they had structure like this. Very modern structure when compared to old city house from Novo mesto, where I originally am from. And now you get the idea where British royals were arriving, when they were arriving for the meetings with the Russians, with others, Germans, in the Novo mesto. My father would put me inside of the car, and he would drive me to locations where they had this MK Ultra sessions, negotiations, and it was exactly what British royals said. Soon you're also gonna have a house just like this, new, all this, and so on and so forth. And my father was all crazy about this. He barely waited to complete this house so he could host the Illuminatis inside. It was a big thing. Whoever got to host them, this was an extremely high honor for the people. And the way Cuito Cuanavale was sold in 1979, 1980 by the British royals, they will say to you that that's not true. There was somebody else who did that stuff, some American or something like that. No, that's not true. Yeah, the British royals don't have anything invested in China. The British royals don't have, when they deal with stuff, business, and they don't come to you and say, hey, you know, I want to purchase, you know, here, you know, they have people, they deal with the governments, because British royals are a government. This is a British government. So what they do is they'll sit at the table with the Russians, and then whatever would be of their interest, they would create agreement, and then they would have their people follow up on agreement which they have made with the Russian government or whatever other government. So I'm just giving you precisely the idea about how this stuff is done. And so it was a sale. It was a financial sale. I think it was the number 200 or 300 million. I have no fucking idea. It was some kind of transaction. It could be for, I think it was for some kind of mining or something like that. Diamonds. Literally, it was a sale, it was a business. I was proclaimed as a traitor. This happened in Slovenia. I was practically a child. And proclaimed as a traitor, cursed literally by the royals because they video recorded themselves for everything. Andrew can explain all about that stuff, what the fuck he was doing. And then they follow up on that sale again about 2 years later, whatever the fuck they have done, and that will be done the latest sometimes like in 1982, 1983. That's about like 4 years before this armed conflict in 1987. So this is basically de facto a sale we're talking about, with what became urgency to get this stuff done to protect whites inside of the South Africa. So it did not end with my being guilty for it. It's interesting because they collect the money, and for whatever they collected the money, I was guilty. I was called traitor by the British royals and that kind of stuff. But in fact, they found justification in literally, you know, transition of the apartheid system into post-apartheid, South African apartheid, Nelson Mandela time. So there is absolutely no question that Cuito Cuanavale was a sale. One of the worst things that happened during MK Ultra must have been Cuito Cuanavale. I never felt any guilt about it. This Cuito Cuanavale actually helped me out. It opened my eyes. about this Kirka pharmaceutical directors who would host in the newer homes, in the newer residences, also people from overseas, Americans here, British, Germans and so on. And the father would just put me inside of the car and he would go like crazy. He would drive like crazy to deliver me. And it was funny because during MK Ultra it would be Serbs that would come in our house in the city of the Novo mesto. Are you ready? Is he ready? Are you ready? Let's go, let's go. Family, friends, and they would drive me to the location where they would be doing already since my early childhood. This is the way it went. It was not in one house. This, what I described to you right now, have taken place in several different residences. It also happened that one residence was not available for whatever reason. There would be another one that would accommodate, and so on and so forth and so on and so forth. And so, yeah, I would know something about this, absolutely everything. This was probably the last obstacle that I did not manage to recall, and probably to the people who witnessed me inside of the houses, in houses of other people, this must have been a strange, weird situation. I remember the people now, when I recall this stuff, because I was asking myself, how the fuck is it 1979, we did not have a house like this? And they keep coming to me on my memory, the house with a table like this, modern, newer, everything bright inside, like this kitchen. Another location that there was a lot of Illuminati stuff that went on, enormously a lot of Illuminati stuff, till my father completed the house here, was the house of Boris Andrianic, the general director, the first general director of the Kirka Pharmaceutical, who practically started this company in his house, in his home, in the city. You know, it reminded of long chess play. You know, when you go play chess like on a tournament, and you're like fucking crazy. You sit at the table and you just go all day fucking long until, you know, your brain almost fucking give up on you, basically, for 8 hours, or sometimes even from the morning to the night completely. And it depends what goes on. And the only difference is that, you know, you jucked up, and, you know, it's all other people that, you know, kind of a do for you, and you're just there basically, and just long, exhausting fucking hours. You hear people talking to one another and so on, that kind of stuff. But you jucked up. But what I'm trying to say is, these guys could go fucking night and day together when they sit. For me, it was impossible. But you got like brain killed used to it. These negotiations, these talks, this blah 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 that went on, shit. It's like every time was like they met the fucking first time. Instead of going fucking sleep, they fucking debated all fucking night long, and so on and so on and so on and so on. Fuck. Horror. And this is how Kirka Pharmaceutical was built, and this is how practically everything was built. Cuito Cuanavale case for me is now closed. I totally reveal you absolutely everything about the Cuito Cuanavale, that if you participated in it, and here the stuff I'm saying, those that participated in it, that goes to 37 years ago. Is it 37? That's 25. That's 25, and then it's 10, and it's 35. Yeah, it goes to over 37 years ago. For the survivors of this war, what I like about this war is that both sides made peace with one another. I really like that, because really was not fault from anybody about the stuff that went on. You know, 37 years ago, in a way, I am fortunate to talk to you about this shit, because I was a teenager, which is kind of insane. But the guys who were fighting the war, they were not teenagers. Many of those guys already died because of the age. And so, definitely it's a little bit late, but you can trust me absolutely. This truth will never ever be revealed to you if it wasn't for me. Nobody would reveal this truth. This was all the shit that was negotiated between the Russians and between, you know, Western, American Central Intelligence Agency, British. British were the main switchboard. And I just feel these guys don't give a fuck. They don't care about anybody. They care about themselves. They never went broke. This did not happen the first time. It was not first time with the Cuito Cuanavale that British would make money. British always did this. Always did this filthy, dirty, disgusting, treacherous thing that I stated to you right now. It wasn't the first one. It wasn't the last one. It was something truly disgusting they would do. However, they would not leave me with the psychological consequences. I never felt guilty for it, for their stuff, like I said, they were doing. But the stuff that I talked to you about in part number 1, that's the one that left psychological consequences on me. That was never acceptable. Even today, when I started to browse the internet in the morning to research about this Cuito Cuanavale, I realized that it's far from settled in me. It just anger got me as soon as I saw this pictures of the Cuito Cuanavale, when I saw these soldiers I got immediately this feeling of betrayal, of the treason. The one I really don't like, that kind of feeling. Knowing that this was a battle that was stolen, I felt like it was stolen from me. And yeah, I was in a war with the Russians, and I realized that this shit did not settle down in me. Then I realized there was something they refer to as a victory for me.
And even right now, as I'm talking about, this is the funny part about all this stuff, that victory part is just not appealing, is just not interesting. That means that I was so brainwashed to see myself as in a war, in a competition with Russians, that you know, even that stuff that would count as a victory or whatever, you know, it's just the shit that I was not concentrated on. I was just concentrated on, you know, the stuff that British royals were not doing. That's what, and should, and that's exactly what I was concentrated on. I was concentrated on the cause, on the progress of the cause, on the war, basically. I was concentrated on the war issues and the war results. I was concentrated on global overall situation, on the Soviet Union, on Russia, and on Serbia, which I could possibly not even stand. And so maybe from certain perspective, that's maybe even rational. Maybe they were not subjected to the same mistreatment I was in Yugoslavia. They were not subjected to the same issues, but still I consider this type of attitude sickness. It was so bad for me upon the loss of this thing that I even turned away from the whole thing, that I didn't want. It was traumatic shit. It was truly traumatic stuff. It was extremely traumatic. And like I said, I didn't even want to see white people anymore. I didn't want to see not the white people, but I don't want to have nothing to do with the military that was white. When they transferred me from the white battalion, whatever that was, into semi-white, black mixed environment, I just didn't want to be there, because it was always like that. That where there was a mixed environment, I always had problems, and so I wanted the whites of the picture for the first time. I didn't want to have them anywhere even near me. I demanded to go completely black battalion. They told me that I'm insane, that I don't even know what the fuck I talk about. I said, yeah, I do know what the fuck I talk about. I was extremely determined. Now the black people, they started to discourage me from entry into complete black military. Can you fucking imagine this? They paid blacks to discourage me from being next to them. You know what I mean? Like a black soldier, as the only one. This would be usually reserved for the poor people, for those that they would not want to consider, for those that were even suspicious about, you know what I mean, about, you know, about their whereabouts, military whereabouts. It's like lowest group where you have all kinds of people inside, infantry. But that's exactly where the fuck I wanted to be. That's exactly where I wanted to be, and they couldn't get me out. As I stated, they started to claim that I'm mentally ill and stuff like this. I did not have any fucking problem with the black. As soon as the whites were of the picture, no more problems. Or you go black, or you go white. You know what I mean? Black and white, that's always a problem. It was always a problem.
My rebellion lasted for at least 2 years. I didn't want to have nothing to do with the white soldiers. And when they would deliver me to the white soldiers, I really started to cause them mental problems. I really started to screw them in their head. They were just not used to something like that. First time they became prejudged. I started to prejudge them. I just fucking rejected them. And I would hear oftentimes, oh, and here it goes again. You know, this is the way it was, this shit. For 2 years. And Polacks, by the way, Polacks had a lot to do with my getting back. You know, my accepting again white military environment. This is the way this stuff was. So I clarified you absolutely everything about the sale of Cuito, Cuanavale, who did it, how exactly it took place. First time, 1979, 1980. This was a transaction that went on for about a year and a half. And by the way, Donald Trump knows about this stuff. The second time, it was in 1983, and that was a finalization. And it's just not stopped there. 1983, 1984, they were still continuing to work on this stuff. Yeah, they were losing the support for the apartheid in South Africa, and that's where the war for the Cuito Cuanavale was lost. British always collected money, always collected the money, always collected the money. This must be the most disgusting people on planet Earth. This must be the most disgusting people ever. They must be the most disgusting people. They always collected the money, and to tell you the truth, that kind of money, I don't know what they make, that's the kind of money I would not want to know anything about. That is the filthiest money that you can make. There is nothing filthier than that. And it also makes me understand how much I was worried in this whole process. People who can do the stuff like this, there is nothing they cannot do it. People like this can do absolutely anything. They'll do absolutely anything. Because all they care is about their own ass.